Okay, and I pass it on to Marilyn and Sony, who are presenters for tonight's session.
Thank you, Joy. Good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday and happy National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. And we've actually extended it to Lead Poisoning Prevention Month. Want everybody to know that back in 1999, our U.S. Senate designated the last week of October as National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week, so that we can bring more awareness around lead poisoning, the effects of lead, and then just really designate it as a week of action so that people can become more aware, they can know how to prevent lead poisoning, and that they can actually do things to protect themselves, protect their families, and protect their communities. So today, we're honored to provide you with some really important information, not just on the common sources of lead poisoning, but also the non-housing sources. And so my name is Sony Johnson. I am a education and outreach coordinator for the department. And I'm going to be joined by my colleague who is she's a community outreach nurse as well as a nurse case manager. Marilyn, would you like to say a few words?
Hello, everyone. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you can learn a lot from what we have to show you today. And if you have questions, we have a Q&A at the end for you all to ask us, and hopefully we could all answer together.
Great. Next slide, please. So before we get started, just wanted to give you a little bit of information about who we are and why we're presenting this information to you. We're with the Alameda County Healthy Homes Department. Previously, we were Alameda County Lead Poisoning Prevention Program, but since then we have expanded our reach to include all things that are housing, health, and environmentally related. We've actually been in existence since 1991. So we've been in the community for over 30 years, just trying to make homes healthier and safer for children in Alameda County. We're one of the only programs in the nation that actually combines health, housing, and environmental all under one umbrella so that we can provide a comprehensive solution for any type of hazards that can make you sick or injured in your home. We also have program services that we're going to be talking about later in the presentation that everyone can access. And those services also include some free grant funding so that you can not only identify some health and safety hazards, but actually fix them up to make your home a safer place. Next slide, please.
All right. Amongst these children, can you tell which child has lead poisoning? The shocking thing about lead poisoning is that you might not even be able to tell that a child is suffering from it. Symptoms often happen very slowly over a long period of time. Many things affect how a child's body handles exposure to lead. So we have age, nutritional status, the source of lead exposure, the length of time in which the child was exposed, and if there is any other underlying health condition that the child may be dealing with. It is important to know that we might not be seeing symptoms as clearly and immediately, like cough when you're sick. However, when it does come to lead poisoning, the child's body can still be in distress, even though we might not visibly see it. So the effects from lead poisoning are more noticeable, especially when a child starts going to school. Lead poisoning can cause damage to a child's brain and nervous system. It can slow down their growth and development. They may have problems with behavior and learning, and they may also struggle with their hearing and speech. All of these effects can lead to a lower IQ, decreased ability to pay attention, and underperformance in school. So we talked about the complications that can come from lead poisoning, but how do you actually get lead poisoning? The way lead enters the body is ultimately through ingestion, such as eating, drinking, breathing it in, or even just mouthing on items that are contaminated with lead. It's for this reason that children between the ages of 0 to 6 are at most risk. Children are growing and developing rapidly at this age. They are also very curious and will crawl around. put their hands in almost anything in their mouth.
All right, so now, which one of these items do you think might have lead in them? Could it be toys, maybe some chalk, some really pretty jewelry? Any thoughts from anyone? So we usually ask this question when we do presentations, especially to parents or community groups. And the answer is actually a trick question because they all have lead in them. All of these products have been recalled at one point in time for having excessive amounts of lead, and they have been identified as sources of exposure for children in our county. And so, as you can see, a lot of products that you might not even think or consider do contain lead in them, and they were added to products for a various number of reasons, such as durability, flexibility, because lead is an actual metal. When added to colors, it makes the colors bright and pop and just really shine. Next slide. And so even though there's a lot of sources of lead, we want you to have a base foundation of knowing where is the most common sources of lead found. And that's usually going to come from buildings that are built before 1978, residential properties, homes, apartments. And so the majority of lead poisoning comes from deteriorated paint. Deteriorated paint could be paint that is chalking, chipping, flaking, such as the pictures on your left. They can be on the inside or the outside of the home. And then also another common source is through dust. Dust from friction surfaces, dust from opening and closing the windows, dust that is tracked in from the outside due to bare soil. And then of course, soil is the last housing-based source of lead. And with the soil, it's usually on the exterior of the homes. That's due to deteriorated paint. The paint and the dust has fallen into the soil and the soil becomes contaminated with lead. So because there are a lot of areas that could be toxic in your home, we want to make sure that everybody in this webinar today, if you live in a property that's built before 1978, and Alameda County, actually 80% of their housing stock is built before 1978. So there's a really good chance that you're living in an old home that may contain lead-based paint. And if you are suspecting that you might have some lead-based paint due to poor conditions of the home or the paint, you can definitely give us a call and we can help you out. Next slide. And so again, even though nationally housing is the #1 source of lead poisoning for children, here in Alameda County, we've actually started seeing a trend where around 70% of our lead poisoning cases are actually due to non-housing sources of lead. And because those sources aren't often talked about, that's what we're going to be focusing on today, mostly in this webinar.
Lead can be found in dishes, pots, and water crocks due to the glazes or paint used. Glaze makes dishware smooth, shiny, and helps brighten up colors, but you unfortunately cannot see lead in glaze or paint. Dishware needs to be manufactured under strict regulations to ensure that it can be used for eating and drinking. If it is not under strict regulations, that's called leaching. Acidic foods like salsa, citrus fruits, and salad dressings, or drinks like orange juice, sodas, coffee, and tea, leach lead out of dishes much faster than non-acidic foods. Also, when you start to see dishes get worn out and old, there's a higher likelihood of leaching happening too. Ceramic dishes we would recommend for you to look out for would be imported and highly decorated traditional dishware, dishware that is old, worn, chipped, or cracked, and dishware sold by street vendors or at flea markets. As of now, the FDA has laws about lead in ceramic dishware. California specifically has a law that requires ceramic dishware that has lead to have a special warning label stating Proposition 65. So something similar to the bottom left there. Lead can be also found in food and spices for a variety of reasons. Spices can be grown in countries polluted by lead gasoline. Lead is deposited in soil and water from airborne pollutants and fertilizer application. Lead dust from grinding machinery. Lead is used to also enhance color or increase weight. And ink from plastic or paper candy wrappers may contain lead and then leach into the imported candies themselves. But unfortunately, again, we are unable to tell if a food or spice has been contaminated with lead by looking at it or tasting it. So what we would recommend is avoiding imported foods and spices. Some countries have poor regulatory control, which consequently impacts the safety of food supplies. In the US, it is the legal responsibility of companies that produce and grow foods and manufacture products sold in the US and intended for food use to comply with FDA regulations. Another thing we would recommend is to buy fresh and locally rather than online or overseas. Check labels of products for a state or federal agency safety label. Lead can also be found in cosmetics, especially those that are imported or purchased from informal or unregulated sources. Two of the most common products that are known to have higher levels of lead are Sindor and Kohl. Kohl is also known as Surma or Kajal. It's a cosmetic that is very popular in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, and can be used for a variety of reasons: religious, cultural, or medicinal. Sindor is commonly used in India and is traditionally used to indicate marital status in certain religions. And although these are cosmetics, lead can still enter the body if you put your hands in your mouth after handling these products. That's why, especially for children, they are at higher risk because they often put their hands in their mouth. Things that we would recommend would be to always wash hands after handling these type of cosmetics. Never use Sindor in or with food. And lastly, keeping these products away from children as best as possible. Ceremonial powders and traditional folk remedies. These are very common in different ethnic and cultural groups and used all over around the world. Lead may be found in these products because in some cultures, metal is believed to help with some health problems, or just like with food and spices, it's from the grinding, coloring, and preparation of the product. Common examples that are seen often are Greta and Azarcon, that is found more often in Latino cultures and used for upset stomachs, constipation, diarrhea, and vomiting. We had talked about in our other slides, Kohl and Surma. While they are used as cosmetics, they're also considered as traditional folk remedies to treat skin infections. Sindor we also talked about, which is both considered a cosmetic and ceremonial powder in relation to marriage. We come back to saying the same thing, which is we don't know that a product has lead by looking at it or tasting it. We would ultimately recommend to avoid the use of these products because they are known to have high levels of lead, especially if they've been imported.
All right, so next we have toys. Oh no, don't say toys because Christmas is coming up, right? Well, this is the perfect time why we need to make the public aware of what you can possibly be exposing your child to when it comes to lead in toys. Now, toys are usually made with plastic or metal, and in that plastic or metal, there could be lead, either in the ink, in the pigmentation, or the metal itself, particularly if the toy is imported from another country. So other countries don't have the strict environmental regulations that we do here in the US. And so when they get imported through improper channels, we can have access to those toys. Usually these toys are going to be found at discount stores, through vending machines, at the flea market. And so because of that, you have to be extremely careful if the toy that your child is given is imported. Now, because lead has no smell, it's invisible to the naked eye, the exposure can be really serious, especially if a child is putting the toy in their mouth, they're touching it constantly, and then they're going to put their fingers in their mouth, or they're eating without washing their hands. Because of this, there has been a lot of toys that have been recalled. You can go to the Consumer Product Safety Council.gov website to find out which toys have been recalled. And so again, one of the other things about toys that are recalled are antique toys that you really want to be careful about. We see a lot of toys where the grandparents may have kept from when their child was young and wanted to save it for when they become parents and give it to their kids, and they're called hand-me-down toys. They're in perfectly great condition, but they're extremely old, and they may contain lead-based paint prior to the enactment of a lot of consumer safety laws that were enacted. And so when it comes to antique toys, there's some toy jewelries and imported toys. You really want to be careful about which toys your children are given. Anything that is purchased new in a regular store is going to meet federal guidelines as far as lead safety requirements. And so the toys that your children do get this Christmas possibly, or over the holidays for birthdays or whatnot, if they were purchased recently in a chain store or a regular store, then most likely they won't contain lead in them. Next slide, please. So similar to the toys, there's been a large recall in jewelry and hair accessories. Again, most of these have been imported from out of the country. Some of them can be found, again, at discount stores, such as the dollar store, the 99-cent only store. Some of them are even sold in department stores. So you can find them pretty much anywhere, in gift shops, and then also in vending machines, where you go to a store and there's different products there. Sometimes we don't know where the lead is. It could be in the charms, it could be in the jewels. However, a lot of times, especially with necklaces and rings, children tend to put those items in their mouth, or they're touching their earrings or their jewelry a lot with their hands, and they're getting that lead residue on their fingers, where thus they can either inhale or ingest the lead dust that's on their fingers. And so again, when it comes to jewelry or hair accessories, you can go to the Consumer Product Safety Council website to see what items have been recalled. Next slide. So the next one that we're going to be talking about is occupational lead hazards. Now, this is a very common source of lead exposure, but it's not a direct source. Usually the adults that live in the household, they can work in an occupation that exposes them to lead. Occupations such as working as a recycler, a car mechanic, a home painter, or working in construction. We have a couple of shooting ranges here in Alameda County. Somebody that's working with, again, recycling or electronics, someone that melts brass or different bronze or metals. And so those are some occupations where adults can get exposed to lead. And once they do, that lead residue from work gets onto their clothes. They come home with the clothes on, or they drive in the family car, and that lead dust actually settles in the home, on their shoes, on their couches. And then when the children or the other family members are utilizing those areas, they get exposed to that lead dust residue. And so there are some action steps that, we recommend if somebody is working in an occupation or a job where they are exposed to lead hazards. And so the main thing is you want to ensure that they wash their hands before they eat or drink, that if they have coveralls on or work clothes, that they take them off before entering the home or entering the family car, washing them separately from the family's laundry, and then taking off their shoes before they come home. And so these are some of the things that we recommend if somebody is working in an occupation where they're exposed to lead, so that they don't inadvertently bring the lead home to their families. Next slide, please. Okay, so hobbies is a little bit different from occupational lead. These are things that we do not for money usually, but just for relaxation, because it's things that we enjoy. But there's a lot of hobbies that can expose somebody to lead. Some of those would be hunting or fishing, and usually the fishing weights are known to be completely made of lead. And then also, if you enjoy hunting or target shooting, bullets have lead in them. And so also pottery, if you like to do pottery or use leaded glazed art, such as the lead glazed art, that actually utilizes lead. And then gardening, a lot of us, we do gardening outside of our homes, and we definitely encourage fresh fruits and vegetables. However, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. We never recommend planting anything edible straight in the ground, but rather utilizing raised beds or planter pots, so that you're not utilizing existing soil if you do live in an older home. One of the other things that is a trend is refinishing furniture. A lot of people get old furniture and they give it a new look. And so some of the furniture does, especially older furniture, does have lead in the paint or in the glaze. And so when you are refinishing, and the same with if you work on older cars, refinishing older cars, there's a potential for getting exposed to lead. There's a couple of others that aren't as common. If somebody decides they want to make moonshine, home distilled liquors, a lot of times that equipment contains lead. And then alternative medicines, such as traditional Chinese medicines. If you're into the whole holistic spa movement, you have to be very careful with certain types of alternative remedies and ceremonial powders that contain lead in them. Next slide, please.
Okay. We discussed about all of these potential sources of lead, but to ultimately find out if a child has been exposed to lead is by getting a blood test. It really is as simple as messaging or calling the doctor's office to request for a blood lead level test to be ordered. We have several services throughout Alameda County to help families who need support with home hazards. We have property owner education and services. We do lead hazard repair grants, lead safety education and training, homeowner minor home repair grants, case management of lead poisoned children and environmental assessments, and healthy homes education.
And so one of the services that I really want to emphasize, and I hope that everybody takes advantage of, is that we do have funds available. We have free money to help you if you live in an older home built before 1978. Our experience is that if your home is older than 1960, then the likelihood of finding lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards is a lot higher. And so you can get up to $10,000 per unit. So if you live in a duplex, that's $20,000 because that's 2 units. If you live in a fourplex, that's $40,000. So there's a lot of money available to help fix your home, to get rid of the lead hazards that might be exposing you and your family. Now, these funds, they can go towards the inside or the outside of the home. We can do some soil remediation, which is a fancy word for landscaping. When it comes to landscaping and contaminated soil, as long as you cover that contaminated soil up with something, it could be pebble rocks, it could be bark, it could be grass, or even concrete. That's going to protect your family. Now, with these particular grants, the family does need to be low income. If you are a renter, we can work with your landlord to make sure that your landlord applies for these grants, because these grants don't have to be paid back. Again, it's really free money. As long as the person that lives in the home is low income, they qualify. And in addition to the $10,000 per unit, we have another additional $5,000. Let me tell you, we love giving away money. This $5,000 can be used towards other things to keep your home safe. So other healthy housing issues, such as if you have shaky stair rails, if your water heater isn't working, if you have a broken window or your door locks aren't working, if the exterior, there's no lighting and it's unsafe, we can use that additional $5,000 to help fix and repair other things around the home. Along with this grant, you'll get a free lead risk assessment. We'll hire a third party to test the whole home to see if there's any lead-based paint in the home. We're not an enforcement agency, so we're not gonna, run to code enforcement and let them know that you have lead in the property. Our whole objective is to really make sure that every single house in Alameda County is safe for children, for occupants, for families to grow up without having any health and safety issues. And then if you do apply for this grant, we will do a free clearance test before the family moves in or after the work is done, just to make sure that there is absolutely no lead dust residue left from the renovation work. Next slide. And so if you're interested in our lead grant program or any of the other services that Marilyn had talked about, we have some other grants available as well. I want everyone to go to our website. It's www.achhd.org. You can subscribe on our e-subscribe. Now that's our newsletter that comes out a couple of times a month, and it tells you all the new programs. You will hear about everything first. If we get a new grant and we have more money available, you're going to hear about that first on our e-subscribe. If we have any events going on, such as these webinars, you're going to hear about that first. And this is a good way to keep yourself informed and then to share this information with your friends, your family, and your community. We're also on social media. I'm really proud about this. We have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter. So if you're really into social media, you can definitely get a lot of information from our social media sites. And finally, we've set aside a lot of time for questions because we really want to be a resource available to you. You have the opportunity to ask questions directly to Marilyn, who is a nurse, and she does manage lead poisoned children. So if you have anything specific, or if you have questions about some of the services that we offer, or some of our grant funding, please, right now is the time to ask us. We are available to you.
There are some questions in the Q&A. The first question is, what about copper cups? Do they have lead in them?
So Marilyn, I'm aware that a lot of East Asian cultures, they do have what's considered like a water cup. And sometimes the water cups might be made of different materials. They might be, I know the stainless steel ones are good. We haven't seen any issues with stainless steel. Sometimes copper or brass might have some mixed metals. And so it's a little bit harder to tell unless it's tested. Do you want to talk a little bit more about any experience that you've had?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't came across copper as where we've done home visits and we've tested copper, but brass for sure, based on our experience, that if you can avoid it, we'd recommend it. What we'd recommend is definitely stainless steel. We've also seen that silver is good too, but copper, personally for me, I haven't seen. I would definitely recommend if you buy it from big stores, Macy's, Costco, anything like that, we would definitely we would just basically, recommend anything bought in the US if possible. If it's imported, it's kind of there's not as much control where it came from and stuff like that.
All right. The second question is, if your child is lead poisoned, will the doctor give them medicine?
Great questions. So it definitely depends on how high the level is for sure. It depends on if there's any underlying health conditions that the child might be dealing with. But what we would do is work with you. We would work with your doctor as well. And we all collaborate to make sure we're making the best decision for your child. We wouldn't necessarily say every single time that medicine would be prescribed, but there are a lot of things that you can do at home, such as feeding your children with vitamin C, iron, and calcium-rich foods. These are all things that you can do as the parent at home you have a lot of power, right? And by giving your child nutritious foods, it will definitely play a role in bringing their level down.
And if I can just add to that, the reason why Marilyn is recommending giving your children nutritious foods that are high in iron, calcium, and vitamin C is because those metals are actually good for our body, and they almost mimic lead in the sense that our body can't differentiate between a good metal and a bad metal. And so if our body has more of the iron or more of the good stuff, it's not going to absorb the lead as readily, and it'll actually help push that lead out of the body. And so it's more than the fact that it's good nutrition, but the chemistry of the body knows how to get rid of things naturally. And that's one of the primary ways where we can help children reduce the amounts of lead in their body. And we can usually see quite a drastic jump within a 1 to 3 month time frame if they are increasing their iron intake, their calcium, and their vitamin C intakes.
There's a question, are there home tests I can buy to test for lead in toys, makeup, etc.?
So there are some home test kits. Usually you can purchase these from different hardware stores such as Home Depot, Ace Hardware. They're called lead check swabs. Now these lead check swabs, they're only as good as the surface that you're testing. And so one of the things is that if there is a coat on the toys, if it's a plastic toy, there might be a clear plastic coating, and you test the object, because it is a surface test, then you may get a negative result because it's not coming in contact with the actual paint due to that surface coating. You can also utilize it possibly to test those brass or copper water cups. Generally, we will see some type of reaction come about. Any type of pottery, you can utilize it for those items as long as there is not a clear coating or a clear glaze that is acting as a barrier between the lead painted components. We don't recommend it for any housing based components such as paint on the exterior of a home, windowsills, doors, anything like that. Definitely not on soil or dust, because you're not going to get an accurate result from that.
Thank you. Can adults get lead poisoning just like kids from soil?
They absolutely can. Sony was talking about a few ways, which is through occupation. If you work in certain areas where you might be exposed to lead, but also if you have hobbies that are related to lead. So pottery, when I'm going to the what are they called? Shooting range? Yeah, those are exactly hobbies that might expose an adult to lead. Another thing is some people might have heard of this before. It's called pica. It's a behavior where you might you have a tendency to want to eat things that are non-food items. So it could be as like soil. You want to eat wood chips from the fence, or all of these things that are not normally eaten, but it's a behavior. And if you are diagnosed with this, it's something that an adult or any person might not have control over too much. So definitely an adult can get lead poisoning. But if this resonates with anyone, we would just recommend, first and foremost, get tested. Let's find out and let's figure out what we can do to help you.
And let me also say that it takes a larger amount of lead to poison an adult's body versus that of a child's. For a child, the smallest amount of lead, especially if they're under 6 years old, is going to have a bigger impact versus an adult. The reason for that is because a child's body, number one, is a lot smaller than an adult's body, but also because their brains, their organs, their bones, everything is still in development mode. So the smallest amount, because lead is a neurotoxin, which means it inhibits that growth and the development of a child because they are still developing. With an adult, I hate to say it, but we're pretty much as smart as we're going to be. We're pretty much as tall as we're going to be. And, if we do get lead in our body, it's not going to have the same effects as it does for a child. Some of the effects for adults, it can affect our central nervous system still, our reproductive system. Marilyn, what are some of the other effects for adults that they can experience if they're exposed to lead?
They would still, their brain development, I mean, it can still it could still affect, but we see the significant difference when it comes to children. Yeah, I mean,
it sterilizes men, and for women, it can cause miscarriages. And so if you're a young family and you're trying to have a child, but you've had miscarriages or they're not working, it is known to either sterilize men or create reproductive issues in adults as well.
Thank you. Can a child get lead poisoning if they play with a toy with lead only once?
It's kind of a yes and no question. This definitely depends on what the type of toy it is. It depends if it's significant paint is peeling, if it's really old. It's all these other factors that we have to take into consideration versus just played with once. Did they try and eat pieces of the toy? So unfortunately, it's hard to just say yes or no. But if you are ever concerned, talk to us. We would love to be able to dive in further and get that blood test if you are concerned.
And let me be the devil's advocate. I don't like scaring parents, but I want you to know some of the real consequences, because it's such a good question. We've had some cases, not locally, but on the East Coast, where a child had a toy necklace with a charm on it, and the child was putting the necklace in their mouth and accidentally swallowed it and was scared to tell their parents. The child got really sick, to where that child was put into the hospital. Now, this has happened on a couple of different occasions where one child did actually pass away because the item was in the child's stomach and went undetected until the autopsy. However, you never know. One time could be one time too many. And so we just really want to make sure that parents take precautions. One of the other things that I do want to talk about is, and I'm not sure if I'm not allowed to say this or not, but Amazon does not regulate imported items that come from out of the country. And so if you are getting imported toys, jewelry, makeup, you have to be very cautious of where it's being imported from so that you can protect your family with that knowledge.
Thank you. Can regular dish soap clean up lead dust, or should I use a special cleaner?
So for cleaning, you don't have to use a lead specific cleaner. Now, one of the things that we really recommend is using Swiffer dust wipes, either the wet wipes or the dry wipes. Now, the dry wipes have a electromagnetic static thing on them. And so those are really great since lead is a metal. If you utilize those first, just for weekly cleanup around your home, but also what works well is disposable wet wipes. It doesn't have to be a lead specific item because again, this is a metal, it's a dust. You just need to utilize something to clean it up. Now, if you're going to use a rag, for cleanup or a sponge, you want to make sure you use a 2-bucket system, one for cleaning and then one as a clean rinse water, because if you're cleaning a surface area and then you're rinsing it out and then you're going to clean another area, you might be recontaminating it. So you do want to use at least a 2 or 3 bucket system, which is why a spray bottle or some wet wipes that are disposable is actually a better solution.
Thank you. Why don't doctors offer these tests to parents at office visits? Are they not educated on the importance of lead testing? Oh,
That's a good question. So ideally, we definitely want our doctors to be aware of testing patients, children routinely. Some might not know, and it's because there are not laws, I guess you would say, that tell these doctors that they should be doing it. But what you can do as a parent is advocate for your child. If you have noticed that any of these things that we've talked about that your child may be exposed to or your family is exposed to, you have every right to talk to your doctor and let them know, I need a blood lead level test, and they should absolutely be putting that in for you. Actually, just so that you guys know, that is our next intention, is going across Alameda County and talking to provider offices. So that way everyone is educated that these doctors should be doing these routine tests for children, especially if based on culture, based on family hobbies, all of these things, ordering it, at least we would recommend annually, just so that way we can stay on top of these levels. And if this is something that you guys are dealing with, we all want to collaborate together to make sure that you guys have a safe home.
And in addition to that, if you happen to be on Medi-Cal, Medi-Cal does require at the age of 12 and 24 months old that every child is tested for lead. So that's something that the doctor should be doing. Now, if you do have a private physician or insurance company, one of the things that you can do, because they should be screening children under the age of 6 with questions usually. Do you live in an older home built before 1978? Have you done any renovations? Does somebody work in your family in an industry where they may be exposed to lead? Did you travel outside of the country recently? And so sometimes with those screening questions, if you're aware of them, you can go to your doctor and say, hey, you know what? We just did a renovation. Our house is built before 1978. Can you give my child a test, because a lead test, and we really want to make sure that it is a venous blood test, which basically means they do need to get poked and get blood drawn, but that is going to be the most accurate test. But you can ask them, can I get my child tested because because of these screening concerns? We do live in an older home. We did just have renovation done. We did just come back from another country. Or even if you didn't, that's another way just to get them to give you the test.
thank you. Does vitamin D help the body when exposed to lead?
Vitamin D is helpful. So iron and vitamin C, let me say this again. Vitamin C helps iron get absorbed easier. Vitamin D helps calcium get absorbed easier. So we would definitely recommend, if you can, increase the vitamin D as well, because it's going to help block out that lead absorption and increase the iron and calcium absorption. That's a great question. And definitely, if you can increase the vitamin D, eat more, drink more milk, cheese, add more of that in the diet. It's definitely going to help you for sure.
Thank you. Do you give presentations at school?
I'm not sure, have we done that yet, Sony? Have we?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We actually love giving presentations to schools, and I have quite a few colleagues that do that with them. We go to every level, from child cares to middle schools, kindergartens, all the way up to high schools. We've gone into science classes where we've allowed the kids to do experiments. Some of the kids have taken on lead as an environmental justice issue in their neighborhoods, and they've gone around collecting soil samples safely, and they've teamed up with local labs to get them tested, and then they became advocates for their communities. Speaking specifically of West Oakland and the Fruitvale, we've had some great students that have become lead or advocates for lead poisoning prevention. And so if there is a school that or community group, parents, anybody that would like a presentation, you can definitely give us a call and we can work it into our schedules.
That's all the questions that we have in the Q&A. Anything you would like to add before we conclude?
Well, I know we had a lot of information thrown at you tonight, and hopefully this recording will be made available to share with your friends, family, and community. If any questions come up afterwards, contact us. You can go to our website. Because this is Lead Week and it's only Wednesday, we have a lot more that is planned for this week. You can go to our website. At the bottom of this slide, it shows it's www.achhd.org/leadweek. That tells you about all the activities that we're having the remainder of this week that you can participate in. And then if you have any other questions, you can reach out to a member of our staff directly.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining.